What's up, everybody? I am back with a new TV show spoiler review. This one is one of my most anticipated shows that I've been looking forward to since its announcement earlier this year. Nicolas Cage Spider-Man Noir series, which unfortunately, which I have to make that part of my cons of this series, is the fact that it has no kind of ties to the Sony Spider-Verse Miles Morales films, because Nicolas Cage voiced Spider-Man Noir in the animated films. So now that he got his own movie, clearly there's no like connection with that same character, but it's played by the same character, which is unfortunate, because I was kind of hoping there would have been some kind of, tease, because we still have not gotten anything from the third film in the trilogy of the Spider-Verse films, which I am looking forward to so much. The massive cliffhanger that we was left on is just like, oh god, I want to see what's happening. Anyway, before I continue, please do me a huge favor and like this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of the Spider-Verse. Sorry, not Spider-Verse. Spider-Man Noir. So, just a recap. Let's rewatch the trailer. Spider-Man Noir.
Every mystery forms a complex web. But pull the right strand, and it's a straight line to the answer.
I'm glowing bright obsidian.
Universe trends to disorder.
Axolotl amphibian. Monsters on the loose. Unelemental chemical.
All you can do is fight to keep the chaos from your door.
I came here to offer you a job. My friend disappeared.
You haven't given us much to go.
What can I say? The world's a dangerous place. I think you're braver than you let on.
Got me growing six black tentacles.
You've been in a hole ever since Ruby died.
Wow, and from Project Hail Mary?
We're chasing ghosts.
Maybe we can be alone together.
This is your chance to put that shovel down. So what are you waiting for? Let the best man live.
This is how it ends.
The people could use a hero. Fighting is the point. He's the best show in town.
What happened to your face?
I walked into a door.
How many times?
Spider-Man Noir. Now, of course, they had to shoot this film in two different ways. One for color and one for black and white. They had to use unique filming in order to shoot for black and white. Now, personally, and maybe that's just my appreciation for the genre, I think they should have just kept it as black and white series, because it's called Spider-Man Noir, hence the genre. So when you think of noir, you automatically think of black and white. Now, I've seen a clip of Nicolas Cage, doing press of this show, and you can tell his love for the genre, where basically he expressed that those young 13 somethings can view it in color, enjoy it, and then want to try out the black and white. And in doing so, will more than likely grow a fondness of that particular genre and want to see other films of that ilk. See, that's what I love about like certain actors that are film buffs themselves, like Nicolas Cage, Jenna Ortega, Winona Ryder, Ben Affleck, and Matt Damon. They know their films. They have this appreciation and just nerding out of film and the science behind films that I grew to appreciate in terms of actors. They ain't just doing this for the sake of being famous. Because they love this craft and like the creativity and the science behind it. Now, personally, I love animation. I love cyberpunk, but I do have like a big respect for the noir genre. So I want to like express that because, man, I wholeheartedly love this. And personally, in my personal opinion, they should not have done this in color. It's not something that you want to be in color. But then again, they did Logan with color, but then for some odd reason they wanted to make it a noir thing. So then they released one that's in black and white. Or, well, they didn't shoot it in black and white, but they kind of, mixed with the color to make it black and white, which didn't see, but is vastly different between flipping a switch on your TV to remove color so it's only in black and white, then actually shooting it in black and white. There's different shadows and tones that goes into play when doing something like a noir type of product. Anyway, of course, it stars Nicolas Cage as Ben Reilly, aka Spider-Man, or the Spider, as he's called in his universe. Now, remember, it's a different universe. This is a universe where it started out with the whole superhero thing burst in the 30s and 40s. So different time, not only a different timeline, but also a different universe. And I've reviewed a few comics in the noir universe. The X-Men Noir, I think definitely the origin of the Spider-Man Noir. But I'm pretty sure, I think I like to think I did another Spider-Man Noir adventure and review that comic. I can't remember. But I also reviewed a Luke Cage Noir. Didn't care for that as much. But there's an Iron Man Noir that I want to review at some point. So I should put that on the list, matter of fact. But the noir universe, very cool. So like I said, it stars Nicolas Cage, Ben Reilly. We got Lamorne Morris as this universe's Robbie Robertson. We got Lee Jun Lee as this version of Felicia Hardy, known as Cat. Karen Rodriguez as Janet Ruiz. Abraham Popola as Lonnie Lincoln, aka Tombstone, in this version of Tombstone, where it kind of looks more like Killer Croc than Tombstone, in my opinion. We got Jack Houston as this version of Flip Marco, aka Sandman. We got Brendan Gleeson as this universe's Silvermane, which I kind of applaud their restraint, because if you play Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. In the Spider-Man Noir universe, you fight like Hammerhead, crap. Oh, somebody else. Uh, uh, the Vulture. Where in the comics, the Noir universe Vulture killed. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, the Uber Eats. Anywho, the uh, where was I? Yeah, that universe's Vulture killed Ben Riley's uncle. At least, well, in the comics, he's go by Peter Parker. That version of Peter Parker. Here in the series, he go by Ben Riley, which is, I guess, an AKA. It's never confirmed where he just changed his name to Ben Riley and his, actual name is Peter Parker. But I'm not too broken up about that. But I'm surprised they held the restraint of not utilizing this universe's Norman Osborn, which will be known by, if you play the game, the Goblin. And he used to be a circus freak kind of thing. So, because it'd be so easy just to cast a Norman Osborn, but they chose to go with Silverman, which, like, hey, I have no problem with that. Silverman has rarely been used in a Spider-Man product. There's only in the '90s series he's used heavily. Then in Spectacular Spider-Man he's used a couple of times, but those are and then of course in like the '80s and '90s comics he's used quite a bit, but he's barely seen in anything in Spider-Man in terms of rogues. He's barely seen. So I applaud the series creators going out their way to like, oh no, let's think outside the box here and use a different kind of gangster. Let's not use the Kingpin. Let's not use Norman Osborn again. Let's use something unique. Let's go with another gangster. Oh, Silverman. Let's go with that. Because it's most people's gripe with certain Batman projects where they keep rehashing the same villains over and over again, like there's no other rogues that they could mine from. And this series, the writers, kudos to you. Kudos to you for actually, using some extra critical thinking skills. It's like, okay, we already, got like, we're already using the same popular villains. Let's go with some lesser known ones. And Silvermane is a legit threat, especially in this. And he's probably not as calculating and cruel as Kingpin or Norman Osborn, but he's definitely up there. So he's pretty much running most of New York. He got a police captain bought off, and he getting like a particular mayor reelected, greasing the wheels essentially. Oh, there's other characters here. Amanda Shaw as Ruby Williams, Ben's deceased wife. Lucas Haas as Winston, Silvermane's right hand. You got Andrew Lewis Caldwell as Dirk Layden, aka Megawatt, which is kind of weird. They're just not making him this universe's Electro. That was kind of weird. We got Jack Mikesell as James Addison, which I'm shocked they didn't, because maybe he is, but I don't think so. But I'm shocked they're not calling him this universe's Molten Man, because he uses like kind of fire-based attacks. So, not sure why. Yeah, this is kind of weird. They could have just made him Electro, but they chose not to. Kind of weird. Anyway, so Ben gets hired to well, basically he's a detective, a private detective, which is unlike in the comics where he is a photographer for the Daily Bugle. But I think the way the origin ended, he started his own private investigation after this universe's J. Jonah Jameson turns out to be bought off by Norman Osborn and ultimately killed. Man, they could have done a little bit something from the. Well, I'm thinking about certain things that I've reviewed and read in the Spider-Man Noir origin comics, where they kind of like, well, they touched on the origins of how he got his powers, which is, you know, I do not like the whole Spider-Man body horror stuff because I don't like spiders. But I do kind of respect the fact that it kind of avoided the whole origin story of how he was Spider-Man for 5 years, then he quit after he lost his fiance after a criminal he helped put in jail got out, sought revenge, and killed his fiance, and he was too late to save her. And I can't help but think about the last Spider-Verse film where they're talking about canon events where every Spider-Man across the multiverse, the commonality between all of them outside of the powers is the fact that they all have to go through some kind of tragedy, because that's part of why they chose to become heroes, because that sends them on a trajectory essentially to become what they are. Whether it's Uncle Ben or Gwen Stacy or a different version of Peter Parker, or Captain Stacy, or Aunt May sometimes, or even in this case, it's a significant other, like, I'm blanking on her name already. But she only showed up in flashbacks, so it's not really that much of a big deal. So you can't help but think about that when watching this. At least for me, I can't help but think about that. Yeah, Nicolas Cage did an incredible job. It's like we're watching a live action version of his character from the Spider-Verse films. And I kind of wish it was the same character. That he had some kind of aloofness, that he had an adventure in a different universe during that early years of him being a superhero. Along the way, he got transported into an alternate universe where he's helping out other versions of himself. He doesn't need to go on a full-on speech about it, but it'd be kind of a nice little touch on like, oh, this is a good connectivity here. But it didn't. It's not. So it's fine. But, you know, it would have been dope. Because the movies was primarily the reason why the character got his own show. What else? So after trying to get a guy he was hired to find, he turns out to be, I was gonna call him the multi-man because he's just got pyrokinesis powers. He ends up burning down one of the homes of Silvermane, trying to, because he was hired to kill Silvermane, which leads to a mystery of who like hired him, and it turns out to be, well, Black Cat, who is also under the thumb of Silvermane as his little personal doll that he get to manipulate, use, well, not sexually, but just, hey, you know, you're my. It's kind of like Black Canary in the Birds of Prey film with Black Mass. Pretty much the same kind of dynamic where she's, you know, they're singing almost every night, getting, you know, pretty much kept and looked after, but she can't even make her own choices. Has always been made for her, even down to her clothes. You know, Silvermane picked it out. Of course, it's, you know, going to be a couple of episodes before we actually see Nicolas Cage in the Noir costume, because he put it all behind him. So, like I said, it's been 5 years. But then, after the investigation into Silvermane, reached to a point where he sends a couple of his goons to his office where his secretary is, and she, you know, was kind of beside herself, and she was scared, you know, rightfully so. So it reached to a point where it's like, you know, he tries to quit, which is typical in most Spider-Man adventures, where there's going to be a point where they want to quit being Spider-Man or Spider-Woman or whatever. He dons the costume again after so many years, where he's an older Spider-Man, not old, but he's definitely, like, you know, wise and more experienced compared to most other versions of him. He dons the costume again, and I kind of like that. As Peter Parker typically and Miles Morales, they have like a groove when it comes to their web swinging. He has his own unique way, because it seems not clunky, but it's just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. But just the way he does his web swinging, there's something about it is uniquely him. So only way I can describe it is like slightly clunky. It's not so precise, because Peter Parker and Miles Morales, because they're science nerds, they have like a more of a preciseness when it comes to and knowing the angles when it comes to web swinging. While Ben is not a scientist, unlike other versions of him. So his stuff is seen maybe stretching it a little bit or reaching. But I theorize he just might be clunkier because he's not a scientist, so he doesn't know like that much about angles, and he knows enough to get through the city without bumping into stuff. But yeah, I love the suit. I love the freaking suit so freaking much. So he is confronting Silvermane, telling because there's a reputation that the Spider is has some kind of association with Ben Reilly, and Ben Reilly has like a phone line directly to the Spider. We learned that Flynn Marco and Felicia Hardy were a thing together, but after his conditions, because there's this other mystery that these freaks are showing up with powers like Sandman, Megawatt, and Tombstone were part of the WW1 military with Ben. After liberating some hostages from a German camp, they discover the Germans were doing experiments on people, utilizing some kind of weird technology and animals to try to create super soldiers. There was one with electric eels, which I guess is where it get Megawatt. There's one with a lizard, which, obviously it's probably Kirk Connors or something. And of course, we get one with a further along mutation with a spider. And like I said, that's where the body horror comes into place. And when Ben finds the guy, he gets bitten by this guy. Of course, that's where the spider bite comes from. And one of his comrades shoots the poor sucker dead. And of course, with that transference, he wasn't part of the big photo op with all the other guys that we will come to see in the film, because at this point, this is where we get like Nicolas Cage going full Cage. At this point, surprised at the restraint it took this long, but he's doing these little weird ticks. I guess trying to pretend like he's like crawling, like he got more than 2 arms and 2 legs. As you watch this series, or at least the episode, what I'm talking about. Nicolas Cage, always like doing his own thing, and I'm surprised he just didn't do his own thing the entire series. But he's very good. So he then decides to become a hero, and then until he met his fiance, then he figures his powers were a curse because it ends up getting his girl killed. Him and Felicia got pretty close, but she pretty much, even though she has feelings for him, isn't as strong as her feelings for Flynn Marco, who she really truly loved. She needed help trying to find Flint and get out of under the Silvermane's thumb. Hold on a second. So, ah, so all these actors did a pretty good job. We get Joe Robinson, who, from this film, this series, is probably the only time outside of maybe the '90s TV show we actually see Joe Robinson be so proactive. He works very well with Ben Riley and his secretary in terms of they're not flunkies. They're pretty much partners in order to get in certain places that he can't get to, especially not during the day. I'm glad they didn't shy too much away from the racial components of the era, but also glad they didn't overshadow it with that and make it so heavy-handed, because it'll get kind of preachy at that point, where it's like, oh man, the white man, you working for the white man, you know how it's tough for us. It's this whole spiel that you see in most film and TV shows lately, where you got this whole diatribe, and it's like, this is a superhero film. Yes, given the time period, the whole racial component has to be addressed, but I don't want an entire episode making it all about that, because kind of it takes away from what we're here for. This isn't a documentary. This isn't about civil rights or anything like that. This is a superhero film set in a particular genre, so let's keep it that way. So greatly appreciate that, where you have that good balance. Not to say you need to necessarily ignore it, but don't make it a whole priority. But he's great as a reporter. He also does his own little photography, which I love those old school little cameras he was utilizing. Pretty dang good. We learn about this scientist woman who, her son was part of the branch that was working with the other people who got powers. I thought that would have been Adrian Toomes, because if you know about the '90s TV show, Adrian Toomes, aka Vulture, has this thing with his suit or some serum or something that keeps shifting his age. He's trying to make himself young, and he absorbs life force from other people. Like he's a vulture. He harvests life from other people to keep himself sustained. So I thought we was gonna go with that with his character, but no, he's not the vulture. He just got his unique thing was the fact that he got like a weird immortality where he is actually in his mid-30s, but he looks like he's 60 or 70. So his mom, being a scientist, spent all her life trying to find a cure for her son primarily, but others like him to cure their condition. She eventually finds an antidote, which is like the MacGuffin of the series at the tail end, where Ben, after they capture him and run experiments, finds a antidote that could possibly remove the powers. It works on the son, which I thought was going to be some crazy, negative feedback loop, but no, it was a true cure. Unfortunately, Silvermane, after hiring Flint Marko and Tombstone as his personal superhero goons, along with Megawatt, they come to find their brothers in arms all used as guinea pigs from the same blood from the spider serum. In these little test tubes. they mother and the son ended up burning alive after Megawatt went crazy because this dude's like kind of psycho already, but the actor hams it up pretty well. He ends up severely injuring the mom and the son, but the whole place ends up burning down. They die in the process, but not before the son helps release Ben Riley, because the only reason he got caught or captured was because Felicia Hardy, told them who he really is, and they ended up capturing him and drugging him. So, it leads into this, culmination in Superman's place of business, where Robbie comes to maintain, well, I would say tried to maintain Ben's secret identity, but he ultimately ends up getting found out by Superman and his goons that who he really is. Felicia Hardy ends up killing Silvermane, which for half a second I thought, because he didn't die instantly, for half a second I thought he secretly has some kind of power too, but no. He dies, which obviously will probably leave a power vacuum. If there is a season 2, then you'll probably introduce Norman Osborn Goblin. And potential other superheroes of the Noir universe, because they went to Harlem, where Luke Cage would have been prominent there. Ben goes after Sandman and Megawatt. They fight in the middle of the street, and they get a one-up on him. But after Megawatt just going freaking berserk, attacks Felicia, then Sandman tries to defend her to stop Sandman, but his powers trump Sandman's, because the electricity is so hot, it's turning his sand into glass. That's when Ben, gets second wind and then just yeets Megawatt in an oncoming train, kind of bursting him into a big light show, killing him. There's only one vial of the antidote left. He gives it to Sandman to save his life, because unlike Spider-Man, the others because here's the thing. I think why, because their powers, Sandman, Tombstone, Megawatt, the more they use their powers, the faster the degeneration of their bodies will come to fruition. They will die the more they use their powers. They will die pretty quickly. So that's why it was important to find this potential cure, at least for Felicia trying to save Flint. Only reason that Spider-Man doesn't have to deal with that, because he wasn't like all the rest, where they were experimenting on directly infusing their biology with animals, which, obviously, degrades, their biology will end up degrading over time. Ben got bit by one of these guys, the powers transferred, so the degeneration is obviously not a factor at that point, because he's not like directly experimenting on it. It was just transferred from one experimentation to somebody else. So Flint's life is saved. Ben, rightly so, tell Felicia to kick rocks because, you know, he's still not over the fact that she betrayed him and potentially put him and his friend's life in danger. And he's a slightly little jilted because he did legit fell for the girl that he really was considering running away with her. So that was Spider-Man Noir. It was, like I said, it's really good. I do hope there is a season 2 because this is a very, very good show. Probably one of the best shows that I've seen so far this year. But I'm worried because sometimes we get the wrong people in the writer's room, and then all of a sudden you don't want to end up like Daredevil, where it started off so great, but then different writers and typically the MCU writing staff get their mitts on it and muck with certain things that didn't need to be mucked with. But anyway, this was a really good, really good series. I highly recommend you checking out the show, but I also highly recommend you check out the show in black and white. I think it's named Spider-Man Noir for a reason. It is meant to be viewed in black and white. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. If you've seen this series, what was your favorite moments? Because the cinematography in this was impeccable. The writing, the dialogue is impeccable. Really good work. I gotta make sure I mention that before I end the video. But this is shot beautifully. But let me know what you liked, what you disliked about the series, and I will catch you all for the next one. Peace.